It's That's Lit with me, Shazzy D, and I've got another exciting episode for you today. We're going to be talking all about regional theatre, from what it's like acting on stage to insights like securing funding and putting on a production. Joining me on the show is writer, director, producer Oumi Karenga-Hewitt. Umi has acted in a number of regional theatre productions, including Legally Blonde and Wicked. And most recently, she directed Mamma Mia. Umi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sharon. So lovely to be here.
I'm so excited about our chat today. Now, before we get into all the productions that you've worked on, I want to take it all back to where it all began for you. What sparked your interest in theatre?
You know what? I don't really know. I think drama at school, and I went to go see Blood Brothers when I was studying drama in the theatre. And I think there's just something about the live experience of watching theatre, being in the theatre, that is, I don't know, it's just kind of thrilling a bit. And we each go in with our own different interpretation, we each experience it differently. And it's a real art form, I think. You go out there every night to put on a show, but every show is going to be different. The performers, the crew, the audience, everyone knows that, but it's exciting all the same. So, yeah, I think it's the thrilling nature of it. You never know what you're going to get.
I guess in terms of your background, so before moving over here to Australia, you lived in the UK. Can you talk
Yes.
about how kind of you went from, going to the UK to coming over here and then working in the regional theatre scene?
Yeah, so in the UK, I was actually working in marketing and media. I have a degree in English language literature with film studies. So I kind of was interested in drama at school, but ended up going down the kind of English route and ended up in marketing, which I feel like a lot of people who study English end up doing. And so we moved over to Australia initially just because we wanted a bit of a change of scenery. It's kind of a really hectic life. And then we came to Australia and ended up in a very regional community of Griffith, New South Wales, completely unplanned. But we ended up living there for 10 years. We only just recently relocated to Newcastle. And the kind of journey was very much more about the life place that me and my husband were in. And I just happened to find regional theatre there as something that was really welcoming in terms of getting connected to the community. It also allowed me to do something outside of my work that I could meet people, I could kind of stretch some creative muscles. And also, I think the event-based nature of theatre is, you've kind of got you picking a show and then you're preparing for a show and then you're marketing a show, you're in the show, there's after the show. Like it kind of structures your year, I feel like. That's what I found anyway. So I just ended up doing them year in, year out. There were a few straight plays that I did with the amateur theatre group and then some of the productions that Griffith Regional Theatre put on since 2015. So I did every one since 2017. So they fund those every 2 years, which is just amazing for the community. It means that we can get involved in some really professional level productions for regional area. Yeah,
Lovely. So you worked, behind the scenes, on stage, like from start,
both at the same time.
at the
Yeah,
same
and
time.
any the thing is, anyone that's involved in regional, anything regional, but let's say regional theatre specifically, you're used to wearing a lot of different hats, primarily because there's a necessity to, you have to. So let's say for A Midsummer Night's Dream, we did that with a really exciting group of people. We had a lot of younger cast. So I produced that one, but I was also in it as one of the fairy characters. But there was a lot involved, but by nature, you end up getting involved in so many different elements. So while one of us is helping out with sponsorship, we're also helping out with costumes because someone needs, someone to help buy material or cut things, or, we're helping with marketing, we're helping with music, sourcing music for the shows, that kind of thing. So you, by nature, end up helping in every element of the show because you have a limited cohort of people available and you kind of use that as much as possible. So yeah, I would probably wouldn't recommend it in general because it is a lot, but some of my most fun experiences have been where we've all kind of done a bit of everything as well. So let's say if somebody wants to be a theatre producer or somebody wants to be a director or an actor, I probably wouldn't recommend going out of your way to do multiple roles because I think there's a level of focus that needs to happen if you want to excel in a particular role. And I think this is where the challenge that I found in doing all of this regional production is naturally you'd expect it to lead to opportunities in the professional industry. If someone moves to Sydney and they've got all of this experience in regional theatre, it should transfer over. But because part of the nature of doing so many different things, sometimes you do lose a bit of the, if you are just focused as the producer and you're not involved in any other aspect, you get a real, I suppose, specific experience. So it just, look, and I don't think it's impossible. I think it happens, and it's, I think, a perfectly valid way of gaining experience to go and do professional work later on. But it does mean that it's probably a harder mountain to climb when you're learning that role. And particularly for directing, I think that was a new experience for me with Mamma Mia.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, now that you've mentioned it, do you want to maybe talk about that experience in terms of directing? So, how was it, I guess, transitioning from the acting side? Like, was it a kind of a big leap to then go into the directing side?
Mm. The biggest leap was going from producing to directing because,
Okay.
so by nature, I'm a natural producer in terms of every job I've ever done has been essentially about getting the job done. It's logistics, it's budgets, it's, networking, it's that kind of thing. So with producing and directing, you are producing as the business end, directing as the creative end. So I think when I was stepping into the creative element, it was hard to switch off from the business side of we're selling tickets and what's happening with the delivery of this particular set piece or that kind of thing, so I could focus more on the what's happening on stage. I think if anything, acting experience helped with the directing because I think I could understand where performers were coming from, especially people who'd never been on stage before. We had a community cast, so there are people who had never been on stage before. So looking back at the first thing that I'd ever done, I understood how difficult or challenging that would have been. I do think that after my first directing experience, my approach is definitely not to be prescriptive. I think you can tell someone exactly how to stand and how to walk and when to do something, but there's a lot that comes from trusting people to do what feels right for them in the moment to truthfully tell whatever it is that they're telling. So that was a challenge. Producing and directing, I think, in theatre doesn't doesn't lend itself well to each other, but it was a learning experience. I definitely enjoyed directing, but producing is definitely my comfort zone, I think.
Yeah. And what about the acting side? So, shall I say you kind of started there, perhaps, and then you went into
But
producing, directing? Is that right?
I think that acting is a fun thing that I've always done here and there. It kind of started off with drama. I did a bit of extra work when I was in the UK, but it was never something that I went out of my way to pursue, really. It's something that I've enjoyed, but I really enjoy the bringing an idea to life in one way or another and helping get that out there. So outside of theatre, there's also things that I've done that is behind the scenes and just working with people to get some kind of creative project done. Part of what I do with Western Riverina Arts is helping all sorts of different types of artists in the regional community get whatever it is they want to produce, create out to the world in some way. So,
Yes, because you are currently the vice chair of Western Riverina Art. So I was just going to ask, yeah, what does
yeah.
that involve?
So Western Riverina Arts is a regional development organisation. So essentially, these regional arts development organisations, sorry, they are funded by the government primarily and the local government areas they're in. And they essentially support the creative community in one way or another. So that could be with helping access funding. It could be with promoting artists in one way or another, so giving them a profile. It could be with helping them network or connect to different organizations. Western Riverina Arts has done a heap, and this is things like varies from driving people to particular events because in a regional area, some places are there's no public transport. So
Yeah.
if you have a gig in the town, the next town over, and you're 19 with no driver's license, sometimes there's actually no way for you to go and take up that opportunity. So Western Rural Arts sometimes did something very simple like that. Other things is applying for funding, so you can deliver projects, which could vary from little workshop series to I did a Screen Industry Forum in 2023. So Western Riverina Arts supported that through some CASP funding, and that involved bringing a whole bunch of people to town and essentially saying, here's a screen industry, here's kind of the things you can do. We had people from different organizations come and connect with the people locally. So that was great, yeah. There's a heap of these different organizations, they cover a lot of ground. And for, let's say, example, for community theatre, they're always out there supporting all the different community groups that are out there creating in one way or another.
And
Yeah.
so I guess in terms of putting on a production, so you said
Mm,
something that you're really keen on is the production side. So I'm really keen
yes.
to hear what it takes to put on, a theater production.
So I thought I'd use Mamma Mia as a specific example because I think it's a unique approach, and it's actually part of I'm giving a presentation in a couple of weeks at a conference, and it was actually the basis of why I wanted to give this presentation. So Mamma Mia, Griffith City Council, sorry, they support a community musical every 2 years, and they've been doing this since 2015. So essentially, the council, via the theatre, they fund a community production. They pay the director, production team, they bring in set, they provide funding for costumes, all sorts of different things, and it's a healthy budget. And I think, I mean, I'm sure I can say this because it's publicly available information, but has varied from kind of, I want to say it's like between like $80,000 to $150,000. And that includes in kind as well. So the time for staff, theatre staff, and that kind of thing as well. But it's a healthy budget, and it means that people can actually have an opportunity to do a professional production. So it starts off with Griffith Regional Theatre and council saying, yep, we're going to do a production. They go out and they get the rights to a show. And we were really lucky with the theatre manager was like, we really want to do Mamma Mia. They got the rights a year out, and then they put out an expression of interest to see who wants to direct. And then from then on, the ball starts moving. So I put an expression of interest in, I was selected, and then I built the production team. We then had auditions. From auditions, we had callbacks. From callbacks, we had casting. From casting, we had a few dropouts. From a few dropouts, we had more casting. And then rehearsal started in April, and then we rehearsed for about 5 to 6 months, depending on the director and uh, the kind of show that we're doing. And so, in terms of what it takes to put it on, in terms of my role as the director, I have the responsibility to put on the show. I have to get all the production team members together, and we work out all the different elements of it. So we got an amazing set from Melbourne, which was just wonderful. It is a professional set, and once that's brought in, it really does feel it elevates the entire thing. The day-to-day of putting on a production, I'd say, is the planning the rehearsal schedule and what we do. If you've never done a musical, you've got the acting elements of each of the scenes, the singing elements of all the scenes, the choreography, and that is how we have to figure out how to balance all of that. So each of the rehearsals were planned according to whether it was a song or a scene. We had, I want to say it was 42 cast members in the end, which is a lot, but we had about just under 100 people audition, and they were all brilliant. Like in any other community musical year, everyone would have been involved in some way or another, but we had to, cut as much as we could. But that's managing 42 people in one way or another. That's also, you've got a band. It was hectic to in the beginning portion and the end portion, but the week to week, it's actually just getting together and hearing people sing beautifully, watching people who've never performed before get really comfortable with each other doing a scene. And I don't know if you've seen Mamma Mia, but it is a really joyful, happy show. It's, really about community and relationships, and it's quite funny. So the week to week of it is genuinely one of the most exciting, fun things to do, especially when everyone's got their normal jobs. Like we've got lawyers and doctors and nurses and teachers, and you're all doing your own thing, and then you come to sing for an evening, or you are doing choreography on a Sunday. And it really is an opportunity for everyone to step out of their normal life, I suppose. And there is a lot of research actually that shows that community singing, community performing. It has amazing kind of social cohesion benefits. It helps people bond. It can help with health and well-being as well. It helps to relieve stress. The dancing element of getting physical, there's actually a lot of positives, and you could see that the benefit of being a director this time was that I could see that happening. You could see people enjoying coming to a rehearsal because it was their time away from the stressful week they'd had or the stressful day they'd had. And that was really beautiful to kind of witness. Yeah.
Yes, because I'd
Yeah.
imagine, seeing everything from the start to the finish, maybe that opening night, like, what's that feeling like when you see it finally all come together?
So I am very biased with the cast of Mamma Mia in that I think that they are hands down one of the best group of performers I've ever come across. And uh, I think they could be on a professional stage. You could move that exact group of people and they would be brilliant. So opening night for me was almost like I was so excited for the community to see the show because I knew they were going to be amazing. I knew they were all going to love it. But I still think at that point, people in the cast and the crew just weren't sure that it was all going to come together. They were like, oh, there's this sound thing, and is this mic okay? And there's this costume thing. And I was like, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. That's how I felt anyway. And it was great. And we had, I think the first 2 nights, we had a few tickets available. And after that, sold out. Everyone was calling the theatre constantly saying, who's got tickets for this? And I was like, we told you months ago. So that's always really exciting to know that word has spread. And in a regional town, it's all about word spreading. So, yeah, I think if anyone gets the opportunity to be part of a community musical, especially one that's funded like appropriately, I think 100% you should do it. And it's a good learning experience in terms of the skills that you develop in the particular role. So there are things that I learned as a director that I would never have learned otherwise. I don't think I would have had the opportunity to do that, in within a project in the same way without having to go and study something. It just gives you that practical experience that I think helps to, do the next thing.
Yeah, put yourself out there and just give it a crack and then learn even more as you do it.
Learn and also, I mean, Mamma Mia was different for me this time because wasn't part of the kind of cast and crew in the same way. I was the director, I was kind of separate. But my very first production of Wicked, and I say this all the time, but I credit that as the main reason that I stayed in Griffith because as you can tell, I'm from London. I'm not from regional New South Wales, but it is the main reason that I ended up staying in a regional town for so long because I really it was almost instant. I just found this group of people that I really connected with, doing an activity that I could really get behind that was kind of low pressure. I know it was, it's performance, but I was in the ensemble. There's no expectation for me to go out there and be, this big Broadway star. It's still a community production. The community itself, the audiences, they really supported the production. Everyone is so invested in the success of the community musicals. Once every 2 years, everybody gets behind it. Council, businesses and sponsors, the cast, the crew, the family members of the cast and crew. So you really feel like like you're part of something. I think I would have probably left Griffith, if that hadn't come along, I would have left soon after arriving, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, which I feel like kind of ties into my next question about like, yeah, the benefits which you mentioned before, like being a
Mm.
part of something that the whole community can enjoy also really benefits yourself. Like you feel really good, you're doing something you like, but then at the end of it, you're also giving something back in a way.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you're giving something back, but remembering that when you're somewhere like Griffith is 6 and a bit hours away from Sydney, 5 and a bit hours away from Melbourne, 4 from Canberra, there are some people in that area that distance and access to seeing a live professional production of theatre is actually a barrier that is too hard to kind of overcome, whether it's age, socioeconomic circumstance, whatever it is. So I think regional theatre is actually really important to be able to give people access to the arts in a way that they wouldn't otherwise. So by investing in high quality regional theatre productions, if someone can go and see Mamma Mia in Albury and not need to travel to Melbourne, but still get the experience of like that was an amazing production, who knows what comes from that? Who knows who ends up being a performer or wants to get into lighting or wants to get into marketing? theatre shows, whatever that is, but also just audience members who want to go see a show that live an hour away from Albury but wouldn't be able to drive to Melbourne. I think that's something that we kind of miss in the socio-economic discussion around regional theatre, is that it's actually the economic value of a regional hub being able to put on these high quality productions means that everyone around you also then gets access to semi-professional, or in my opinion, professional level productions without having to go to Sydney. And the cost of it as well. The tickets for Mummy and Mia were, I think, $45 or $50. If you want to go see something at the Sydney Lyric, or at Theatre Royal. I mean, I'm going to see Pretty Woman tomorrow, and it's in the hundreds usually of ticket prices. Yeah, it's a barrier.
I agree. And, speaking of finances, I also want to talk about funding. So you're talking about how important it is to invest in
Yeah,
regional theatre productions, but maybe if you
yeah.
could share, a bit of insight into funding or like securing funding. Does that come, mainly from council or, outside donation
Yeah.
on a production?
So looking at, if we separate kind of the community musicals and then the local theatre, so the community musical is very well funded by the local council, but it also still requires that the theatre goes out and gets sponsorship. It's not the be all and end all, because the KPI isn't to, make a profit, even though Mamma Mia did make a profit, but it is obviously trying to break even at least. So you'll go out and get some sponsorships if you can, and usually the theatre has done well to do that. When we've done community theatre, so there was a community theatre group called Grappa in Griffith. Every year we'd be putting on something that as cheaply as possible. So that starts with picking the show. So doing something that has rights available, like Shakespeare, so you don't have to pay for licensing, is always really important, keeps costs down. From there, we've applied for community grants from council and then seeking sponsorships from businesses and local kind of patrons of the arts. So part of the, I think, trick is timing your shows around different grant funding rounds. And as local as you can get, I think we have found the most success previously. Because when you're competing with these kind of national or state grant programs, it is just very competitive. And some people maybe don't have as much experience in terms of grant writing or what you need to be able to do to acquit these grants. So starting locally, I think, is always your best bet. And off the top of my head, I know that with our smaller theatre productions, we've been able to do a really good quality Shakespeare production for $9,000, and really good quality production, I think. So it can be done on less, but for example, having a cast of 20 is a pretty big production for a community theatre group. But if you're careful with your licensing and getting something that's royalty free, uh, venue is also usually the most expensive thing. We've gone around that by performing outdoors, council areas or places where we don't have to pay for the venue. But if you do have to pay for the venue, that is the thing that's going to knock you. So in terms of funding, getting that venue given to you is also what I would consider, sourcing some funding. So making sure that's donated in some way. So whether or not it's the theatre or a business that's willing to lend you their space, and being a bit creative about the actual venue. So one of the shows that we did was the Crucible, and we actually did that um, at a cellar door, which was a beautiful church-like cellar door at the Piccolo family farm, and it really was the perfect place for it. And they gave us that venue for free, so that was a really big cost saving measure, but it also meant that we had a really great partner as well in the promotion of this event, and it made it more of an experience. So, yeah, in terms of other things that you can finding funding, I would look to in-kind sponsorship as much as you can. So for in-kind being, how can someone offer their services for free? So let's say if your friend is a graphic designer and their services are usually $100 an hour, do you have a connection to that person where you can say, we will do X, Y, and Z, and that then means that we have something professional, or we have, marketing. My background's in marketing, so that was something that I've kind of always done, and we don't then have to pay for it. Although I would recommend, if you can find the funding for the bigger shows, to pay yourself for at least the bare minimum, then that's great. But saving where you can is good. Um, and what else? Not skimping on things like the program, I think, is a really big thing. So that's a cost that goes into it, because printing is always going to cost something, but getting some sponsorship available for that is always good. And selling advertising space in the program. So that is a way to get revenue. So yeah,
Fantastic. Plenty of ways to get
plenty,
out there,
plenty of ways.
get that
Yeah.
connection started. Um, you have an upcoming talk in Lithgow. Can you talk a little bit about
Yes. So SEGRA, which is Sustainable Economic Growth for Regional Australia. So SEGRA do a national summit every year, and this year it's in Lithgow. And essentially, it's bringing together people from regional areas to who want to support the development of regional Australia in one way or another. So I'm going to be presenting the talk on community arts, community theatre specifically, in a hope to encourage other local government areas to actually, because Griffith City Council have it in their community strategic plan that they're going to fund a community musical every 2 years. So my aim is that to hopefully use the case study of 10 years worth of productions from Griffith to encourage other councils to financially support these productions wherever they are. And from selling tickets and bringing more audiences to local theatre, social cohesion and engagement with the community, building a creative industry within whatever community you're in. So I don't think it's given the value that other kind of areas of industry are given. And I think this case study will hopefully be a good example of how it can actually be really beneficial for local government areas specifically. So yeah, I'm pretty nervous about the presentation because there are some pretty interesting speakers at this event, and I'm in the community section. But I think, people who are interested in it will connect with it, and hopefully we'll get some more LGAs that are like, yeah, we'll fund some art. It's great.
good? Yeah, and I think you're doing a
Yeah.
really good job to speak up and to actually make sure that regional arts, theatre, that whole section actually gets more recognition and more funding because, like you said, it is really important.
And I will add just recently the New South Wales government have released Heartland, which is a plan for regional arts culture. And that basically is so much work for all these different regional arts development organisations that they've put in to essentially get government to see the value of regional. So there's a whole different bunch of kind of grant opportunities that are going to be coming through that, but it's really focused on building up regional arts and culture. So it's a good time for it, I think. And anyone that's based in a regional area should really look to state government funding, local government funding for how you can get your show, your production, your creative endeavor. And for me, obviously, I love theatre. So anything that gives people that live experience that gets people together is something to have a look at because there should be funding and support available wherever you are now.
You've given us so many tips, but I would like to ask one final question.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If there's someone who wants to start, so someone who may not have, a lot of experience, they live in a regional
Yeah.
area and they're like, I really want to be in a theatre production, what advice would you give them?
I would advise anyone in a regional area to connect with their regional arts development organisation. You can go on Regional Arts New South Wales, Regional Arts Australia, and find that organisation. They'll be really connected with any organisation creative in your region, I'm sure. The other thing would be to look up any amateur theatre groups. And I will just say as well, you don't have to want to be a performer to be involved in these arts groups because the people that they need are also behind the scenes people, admin people. If you love theatre, if you love the arts performing, but don't want to actually perform, there are other ways to do that. So I'd say connect with your amateur theatre group, connect with your RADO, maybe just check in with your council and see what arts and what it is that they know of. Go to your local theatre and actually attend your local theatre if you can. Go to shows, and travel to other regional communities. So the year that I did Wicked, I went and travelled to Orange, Wagga, Albury, and one other place, I don't remember, to watch their regional productions of Wicked as well. So travel to other places and connect with other regional creatives in the town over or 2 towns over and start to kind of connect with people in that way. Some people are doing community theatre because a lot of people who did Mamma Mia, like our two leads were a psychologist, a school psychologist and a teacher. They want to be a school psychologist and a teacher. They've got no no plans necessarily to be anything more than that, but it's something that they really are giving to the community and they're part of the community. They've got no intention of going off and running off to Broadway necessarily. But it is something great for them and it's something that gives back to the community in a different way. So I think whatever your aspirations are, there's no negative, I think, for just getting involved in some way. And you'll make friends that last for me anyway, 10 years. So yeah,
Benefits all round.
benefits all around, no negatives. I mean, look, the drama. We get it. We're theatre, we're drama, we're performers. But I think that's also part of the excitement of, being with people who are so passionate about, arts and culture and what they do, and they just give everything to the performance and the show and the production. And I think that's just the give and take that we have with theatre. Yeah.
Umi, it has been such a pleasure speaking
Oh,
with you.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for letting me ramble. It's been so fun. Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of That's Lit. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to my channel or share it with a friend. You can also leave me a comment. Do you enjoy theatre productions? And what's the last theatre show you watched? Let me know. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next episode.